Thank you, each and every one of you. I know so many of you stood in line, and I'm just so thankful that you fought that hard to get in this movie. I'm just hoping the movie holds up. Thank you, Sheffield Film Festival, Hussein. Love you guys. This has been an incredible venue, and the folks here, all the volunteers. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Dogwolf, UK distributor. Thank you so much. Woohoo! The film will be coming out July 26th, and will be released in the States July 19th, and then again July the week following that. So yeah, talk about without further ado. I hope you enjoy the film.
So this is a story, told through many people's voices and told through footage from all kinds of places. What was the first thing that brought this story to your attention?
Yeah, I guess my portal of entry was the death of Don Brancho. It was made kind of major media news headlines at the time, and I think there was just a cognitive dissonance about it. This is kind of the world's happiest place. I took my own kids to SeaWorld and went as a child, and couldn't imagine something like this happening to a trainer. And I actually just had the question, why would a killer whale do that? I thought that they loved, that trainers love the whales love the trainers. I also didn't understand why a whale would essentially bite the hand that feeds it. So I had this burning question and wanted to learn more.
And did you have any idea at that point that your story would be so rich and that you would be able to tell this story from so many different perspectives, and have the historical perspective and have many different positions politically on the subject?
I did not. I didn't. I thought I was making a whole different documentary when I kind of embarked on the project. I thought I was, I don't come from any animal activism, and so I kind of came from a point of trying to understand that incident, and then really the entire time thought SeaWorld would be like a voice in my film, and would be a character, and I would interview them and trying to understand kind of our relationship as people with our animal counterparts. And then I realized that I couldn't do that documentary when I found out what I was finding out. It was kind of at that point the documentary sort of took me, and I didn't have the luxury of really knowing what was happening. I just sort of told the story.
All right, I'm sure you all have questions, so I will take some from the audience. Yes, you, sir.
Considering it's a touchy subject, did you from the start knew you were doing a feature film, or in the very beginning were you thinking maybe you would be doing a TV documentary?
I knew it would be a feature film just because I wanted it to be like a feature film. I don't know.
Well, it's also an American context, so you're...
Oh, that's a good question. Sure. Okay, so I come kind of, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I come from television, sort of commission projects. So I had worked for 15 years on projects that were kind of pre-commissioned by networks, and so whatever. After I had my kids, I wanted to work on independent documentaries that I kind of had more sort of creative control over. So I also just knew when I started this project that I needed to not be driven by an executive. I knew that I was going to probably be embarking on some touchy stuff. And as a result, I didn't want anybody to tell me I couldn't say something or couldn't anger anybody. So it made more sense. It was a better fit for me.
Okay. You, sir. And then pass it up.
Do you have some reaction from SeaWorld?
Yeah, we've there's been just two statements they've made in the media, and those are just kind of benign statements, basically saying, this is this film fails to discuss that SeaWorld loves their animals and takes care of their animals and their trainers, and this is just the typical activist proclamations that have been made in the past. There's nothing new here. Something like that. So sort of, both kind of dismissive, I think, statements that they've made. Beyond that, really nothing. I haven't heard a lot. But the film has not come out yet, not have been released in the States or here. So I just have a feeling that's yet to come, but who knows? Maybe they'll ignore us.
Yeah. Did you get the mic yet? Yeah, great.
Well done. It was a lovely, amazing film. Very
Thank
good.
you.
I just wanted to ask about the legals of that whole scenario, because interesting things, using their footage and just whether they had, whether they've seen it and what they're, obviously we've heard they've done their statement, but I was just intrigued about what you had to go through to get to this stage to be able to know this is safe for public domain.
No, it's a kind of an important question, especially for other filmmakers. It's legal, hot territory, hot water, for sure, I think. But, I kept to the facts. So that was one thing that I think we'll always kind of be armed with as filmmakers. My producer and I, Manny, over there, we just sort of made sure we kept things, tight, I think, in terms of the footage as well. There's this law that protects filmmakers and truth tellers in journalism called fair use. So we invoke that quite a bit. If you're telling a fact and you're using footage to be able to support that fact, and it's in an educational context, and you couldn't really tell it otherwise, then you can invoke fair use. And
the CCTV footage and the footage, how did you find it? Had it kind of been circulating? Yeah, some of the footage circulates. Some of the footage is from people's kind of treasure troves. Some of it's, that you find on the internet. A lot of people, for whatever reason, everybody has a camera out during a SeaWorld show. So you really just have to do a lot of work to make sure you get all clearances for every second. And at the moment that you can't, or that someone's trying to charge you $1 million for it, you need to be able to know why you're using that footage. Do I really need this piece of footage? Is there a way to tell this without me having to sort of take this footage and slap it in my movie? Because if there is, I better use it. Otherwise, you're in legal hot water. So it's just a lot of due diligence with everything, I think. Yes, right here. You have a mic.
I'm wondering whether there have been any more attacks since the film came out, and also since you finished filming it. And I might be imagining it, but I came here today thinking that the incident where Dawn died was to do with the ponytail, because I think there's footage of a killer whale dragging someone in via their ponytail, but I might just be imagining that.
In terms of the incidents at SeaWorld, I think we wouldn't know. The incident reports are kind of privately circulated within SeaWorld to educate their trainers further as to what the do's and don'ts are when attacked by a killer whale. So they're kind of for their own edification. So in terms of things coming out in the public, we don't know. But from what we do know about trainer incidents, they happen all the time. So it'd be strange if some act of frustration or aggression towards a trainer just magically didn't happen in the last 2 years. And then you had a second question.
He seemed to remember thinking that Dawn was
ponytail.
put in by the ponytail, which is part of the
I know,
film.
yeah, there's no... the footage that people see is not really her being pulled in by a ponytail at all. So the people who actually filmed that at the park, her ponytail was really not involved, and it's potentially what folks are thinking is that was a kind of a I guess excuse by SeaWorld, and it also makes it look like there is something that can be fixed, so that if all trainers put their hair up, this won't happen again. Or that this ponytail was just novel stimulus and was sort of exciting to Tilikum. But there's a couple things with that. One is nobody can really say whether or not it was the ponytail. It certainly doesn't look like it from the video. And secondly, there were people at SeaWorld who testified that Tilikum was desensitized to ponytails anyway. So they had like put ponytails in front of him for like a number of years or whatnot to desensitize him so that was not an exciting thing anyway. So that sort of erased, I think, that excuse, I guess, or that explanation.
Yes.
Sorry, just following on from that question, I really loved the film, by the way. I thought it was extremely powerful, so fantastic. What I wanted to ask was that the moment at which Dawn was taken under the water, you didn't include that, and obviously the discussion following on from this question is how she was pulled under, where she was grabbed, and so did you go back and forth on including that, and how did you come to your final decision?
It's a good question. I think that in terms of the footage of her and what happened to her, it exists. So there's, underwater cameras and all sorts of cameras at SeaWorld. So there is documentation of her entire death. It's not made available to the public. The family is fighting very hard to sort of keep that from the public eye, even though it's sort of public record, because it was part of the OSHA case. And I stood beside them. I still, to this day, stand beside that decision of theirs, and I knew I would never in my life use that in my film or even look at it for my own educational purposes or whatever. I think there's nothing you could possibly get out of watching that that you can't really get from the autopsy report, and for key eyewitnesses describing it. It's so harrowing, and it's I think 10 minutes or something where it's just a prolonged, very sort of torturous event, and I just knew I was already having nightmares with just reading the autopsy reports and kind of understanding what a 12,000 animal can do to you, that I knew I wouldn't be able to do that. But also I have, I always say I have to live with this film, and live with the decisions I make, and I knew that was one I could never live with. No, it's not, Yeah, no, that's right, it's not her.
Yes. Here.
Having spent however long you spent on the film, a year probably, or 2 years, or however long, what's your feeling about marine parks and aquariums worldwide, like the big picture about captive animals, for the amusement of the public? Where do you stand on that major issue, which is what really the film's about?
Yeah. Personally, I'm dead set against it. I just went from someone who took their kids there to just being sort of, kind of appalled at the practice of animals for entertainment, but also sort of very frustrated with myself, I think, just because I think of myself as someone who would have known better. And I actually think that when I was at the park, and I remember now kind of being at the park and thinking instinctively, it felt weird. It felt wrong, standing on the nose, or that, like that's your dignity, that's your face, like I just, for whatever reason, I was just like, that can't really be right. And then I would look around me and everybody's laughing and cheering. And I would just be like, oh, no, okay, it's okay. Okay, it's okay, clap, clap, clap. You sort of become this anesthetized drone. And they're just so good at this, like this clean, squeaky, clean, beautiful park. I mean, the whales truly are loved by the trainers. I really actually stand by that. The trainers are the ones who love the whales and care for them and all that. And I think that's palatable. So I think as an audience member, you actually do see the trainers loving the whales, whether they love their jobs. I don't think that's the case necessarily at all. But yeah, I have come full circle in that, I will certainly never go there, never take my kids there, and I hope to tell my friends to suggest alternatives. I don't know enough about zoos, so I do feel pretty strongly that there probably isn't a place for intelligent, sentient animals in captivity, period. However, I do know that zoos, and there are some zoos out there that are dedicated to kind of the preservation or conservation of a species, and there is an educational component there. and they give back. And there's there's a different, I think, level of what zoos or the good zoos do. Then I also know that there are zoos that just don't do a good job, are kind of depraved, and so it's I'm kind of embarking on those questions kind of as we speak. So yeah, I don't know exactly.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Yes.
I really loved the film. I thought it was just really emotionally sort of draining, actually. I
Thank
loved
you.
it. I just wanted to know, do you have a kind of call to action for people who watch this film, and are you partnering with any organizations and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I feel like we're partnering now with every organization under the sun. I didn't come into it really knowing about a lot of organizations. I kind of held everybody at bay because I knew I wanted to do a fact-driven, sort of truthful, almost just the facts and tell the story in that way without shoehorning stuff in that people wanted me to tell and that felt agenda-driven. So I wanted this to stand as this 80-minute document, kind of untouched, of just the truth. But as of late, I think we just are coming up for air now and realizing that the former trainers who were in this film, have put together Voices of the Orcas. So it's called VOTO, Voto. And the film has not come out yet, but by the time the film comes out in July, we're hoping to have a campaign, and as well as it's going to be a landing pad for all information that you would want to get about everything from animals for entertainment, which is what I feel the most strongly about, to Humane Society and a bunch of they're doing sort of a non-human rights project about trying to get sort of like essentially human rights for animals. There I think tons of things that we hope to disseminate information on on that website this summer. So stay tuned.
And kind of piggybacking off those last two questions, when you brought the film to Toronto, there was a lot of action around a new marine park that was being. So this is kind of in some parts of the world a very urgent issue. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and thank you all for staying around for the Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And come see us this summer too in theaters. Woo-hoo.